Welcome to this exclusive KATU Your Voice, Your Vote digital forum. With the biggest change in the history of Portland city government coming in January, the old city council of 4 commissioners and 1 mayor will be long gone. In its place, 12 new Portland city councilors. Voters will pick 3 councilors from 4 new districts. Dozens have applied for the jobs. Today we'll hear from Portland City Council candidates from District 1, which includes parts of Northeast Portland and all the easternmost part of the city, from 82nd Avenue to the city boundaries. Our guests will answer the same questions. They have each 60 seconds to respond. And we're going to begin with this question from a gentleman we met in District 1. Let's play that.
How are you going to get rid of the homeless or fix the problem? It's not working, whatever you're doing now, and it hasn't. Muggings, beatings, drug deals, fentanyl. It's a sad case for Portland.
Terrence Hayes, you're next.
Thank you. So for the most part, homelessness is a county issue, and we need to hold the county accountable for the way it spends city funding. On the other side, when you're talking about fentanyl, crime, we got to make sure that our police force is up to par so that we can hold people accountable that's committing crimes. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're homeless or not. If you're committing crimes, we need to be able to hold you accountable for that. And if that's not the issue, we need to make sure that people have shelters and homes in our community so that they're less likely in those situations to commit crimes just to survive.
There is now a citywide camping ban, as you all know.
Yes.
Here's my question to you. Do you support fining and eventually jailing people who camp on public property, who've refused repeated offers of shelter, including the option to move into the city's temporary alternative shelter sites? Terrence Hayes?
Yeah, I definitely support the camping ban. I think that encampments are not safe for people. And we actually see that we're moving in the right direction. We're starting to see some clarity, and we have to be able to keep going in the path we're going on. As a person who works in public safety, I know that the rise in gun violence, sex trafficking, kidnaps, drug dealings, that is happening in encampments more than we see in any other place. We cannot normalize allowing people to stay in bad places simply because it feels good for us. We gotta push people towards shelter, towards services, so that we can get our most vulnerable population off of the streets.
I want to switch to public safety now. That's one of the issues a lot of you talked about when I asked what was the #1 topic. We visited District 1 to talk with residents about their concerns. Drug use came up multiple times. Legislators recriminalized possession of small amounts of hard drugs like fentanyl in Oregon and allowed counties to implement deflection programs. Is this enough to tackle Portland's drug crisis? If not, what changes would you push for? To you, Terrence Hayes, you're next.
So no, I don't think that we fix the problem that simply. I think treatment, rehab, wraparound services, this actually helps us. You cannot arrest or jail your way out of an addiction problem. What we have to be able to do is hold folks accountable, but once they have that opportunity to get sober, we need to have places for them to go. We need to have wraparound services. We need to have workforce opportunity. So simply recognizing that we should have never legalized hard drugs is not enough. We have to be very intentional about creating pathways of sobriety for folks. That's whether they come home or whether they're in our community. We have to do better holistically with services.
We're going to stay on the public safety issue for you folks. Portland has struggled, you know that, to keep up with crime. What would you do to improve public safety? What would you do as a city councilor to improve public safety? Terrence Hayes, the question's for you.
So yeah, I think that we have to have enough officers to respond. That's just given. I think we all should be able to acknowledge that. That's not rocket science. I think the other side of that is that we have to fund our community-based organizations that do the work every day in a preventative way. The simple answer is not catch people when they commit crimes. How do we prevent those things? How do we get resources into community so that folks is not committing crimes? We know poverty and criminality is connected to one another. So we need to make sure that we're building out enough infrastructure in a community-based organizations so that we can address those early issues, right? We always talk about root causes. We got to get the economics out out there. And as a city, we have to normalize encouraging people to be a part of our police force. We have to bring back a conversation where, yes, we want accountability, we want well training, but we want our officers to show up. So community and policing has to do this together if we want to become a safe city again.
All right, I want to ask you another question. I got somewhat of a hint to where you're all leaning on this particular issue, but I want to get specific on it. Do you support funding, additional funding for the Portland Police Bureau? Do you support additional funding for that? And just give me a little sentence or two why. And Terrence, I want to begin with you on that.
Absolutely. I think at this stage, I hear people talking about gun violence and the things that's really important in our community. But unlike everybody else sitting up here, I'm a person that actually has been a victim and someone who's caused gun violence in the community. This thought that somehow we can exclude police from that process is just not true. The numbers or the data don't support that. I do this work every day. We gotta have officers that can be a part of that can get ahead of gun violence, as Tamora was talking about, to get ahead of retaliatory violence, and we have to support. So yes, we gotta get more officers, and as Noah said, we have to be at best practice in our city.
I want to shift gears once again for you guys. The housing crisis extends across the state of Oregon, particularly in Portland. In 2015, in fact, the city declared a housing emergency. The city's housing needs analysis predicts we need to build 120,000 new homes in the next 20 years to meet the current and projected demand. The city is far below that goal. Here's the question to you. What steps would you take to increase the availability of housing? What steps would you take as a city councilor? Terrence, I want to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think the government got to get out of the way. We went through a long 4 to 6 years where every day we looked up, there was some new thing that we wanted to put on the back of everyday citizens who were trying to rent homes and be landlords. And then we did the same thing with private money and big building. We do this thing in this city where every time somebody's uncomfortable, they put their burden or their concerns on folks that's actually tasked with providing housing in our community, in our city. So we need to look at all those policies that we've created that make private folks not want to invest in our city and make everyday citizens not want to open their doors up to be renters. So we have to be honest about that, and we need to make people excited again about renting their homes, and we need to make private investors excited about investing in our city.
We have another viewer question for you now. With the affordability issue in Portland, here's a comment that I bet a lot of people would like to hear your response to. Let's play that.
Make the rent cheaper. It is impossible to live in Portland. The rents are way, way too high.
You guys are probably having trouble hearing that in the studio, but I can tell you the folks watching this at home online are hearing that soundbite. But the person asked, make the rent cheaper. It's impossible to live in Portland. The rents are way too high. What can you do as city councilor to lower the cost of rents in the city of Portland? Terrence, I want to give you a chance on this one.
So yeah, I'll say this. How do we as a council actually impact that? I think, again, we get out of the way of developers and we get out of the way of everyday community members that want to rent their homes. The supply side, the demand side, if we can increase that by getting out of the way as a city, I think we will drive prices down point blank.
As you probably know, here at KATU, we work side by side with Univision, which is the Spanish language network here. Next question is from one of our Univision colleagues. Again, I'll read it for you folks, but go ahead and play that.
Hello, I'm Guillermo Mota. I'm a reporter for Univision Portland. Talking to Latinos in the area, they feel as there's a lack of connection between government officials and the Spanish-speaking community. How do you plan on addressing this matter and gain their trust in their language?
Terrence Hayes.
So one of the reasons I ran for office is because I felt like over the last few years that a lot of people spoke for the black community that was not from the black community. So it was important to me to bring that representation, and I bring that same energy. We have to bring leaders and community members out of every community and uplift their voice. We don't need to speak for them. We don't need to determine what's important for them. We need to give them the opportunity to tell us their expectations. So I think that we have to be available. We have to be honest about the fact that we like to pick and choose in government who we want to listen to, and we need to open up the doors for communities to have their own voice and own expectations.